In this presentation, we will talk about linguistic knowledge. Knowing a language means you can speak and be understood by others who know that language. This implies that you have the knowledge to be able to produce strings of sounds that signify certain meanings and to be able to understand or interpret the sounds produced by others. Most people know at least one language. Yet, the ability to carry out the simplest conversation requires profound knowledge that most people are unaware of. This knowledge is called linguistic knowledge. Linguistic knowledge constitutes three sub-knowledges, which include knowledge of sounds, knowledge of words, and knowledge of sentences. Let us talk about the knowledge of sound system. Part of knowing a language means knowing what sounds are in that language and what sounds are not. This means that you might not be able to make use of a certain sound which is not part of the sound system of your own language. Thus, pronouncing a foreign word might become difficult and might lead to mispronunciation as you tend to substitute the unknown sound with a sound similar to your language's sound system. For example, in French, this and that will sound like zit and zat. Why is this so? It is because there is no sound for th in the French language system, and that nearest sound that they have to substitute for this is the sound of z. But then, linguistic knowledge does not end with the knowledge of words. Knowing the sound system of a language includes more than knowing the inventory of sounds. One must also have the knowledge of letter combination. This brings us to the next aspect of linguistic knowledge, which is the knowledge of words. Certain sequence of sounds signify certain concepts of meaning, and that pertains to our knowledge of words. To know a language, we must know words of that language. Again, when you know a language, you know words in that language. That is, you know which sequences of sounds relate to specific meanings and which do not. For example, you know that the words toy and boy are words in the English language. Toy pertains to a plaything, while boy is a term used to denote to a male child. But you also know that there are no such words as moy or boy in the English language. If you do not know a language, the words and sentences of that language will be mainly incomprehensible. This is because the relationship between speech, sound, and meanings they represent is arbitrary. There are no particular governing rules as to how words are chosen to represent a certain concept. For example, food in Japanese is represented by the word shakumotsu, umshig in Korean, yeda in Russia, and comida in Spanish. Despite the arbitrary characteristic of language, sound symbolisms also do exist. Sound symbolisms in language means words whose pronunciation suggests their meanings. Most languages contain onomatopoeic words like buzz or murmur that imitates the sounds associated with the objects or actions they refer to. But even here, the sounds differ from language to language and reflect the particular sound system of the language, like the example image on the left. The last aspect of the linguistic knowledge is the knowledge of sentences and non-sentences. Our knowledge of language not only allows us to produce and to understand an infinite number of well-formed sentences, it also permits us to distinguish well-formed from ill-formed sentences. For example, you know that the sentence, "I expect them to arrive a week from next Thursday," is a well-formed sentence, while "I expect a week from next Thursday to arrive them" is an ill-formed sentence. How is this possible? This is where our knowledge of grammar comes in. They are unconscious rules that we acquire as young children as we develop language, which were later on refined through schooling and are responsible for our linguistic creativity. Linguistic creativity or creative aspect implies that knowing a language means being able to produce and to understand new sentences never spoken before. There may be a finite number of grammatical rules, but we are capable of producing infinite number of new sentences. For our last topic, let us clarify the difference between linguistic knowledge and linguistic performance. Our linguistic knowledge or competence is our knowledge of words and grammar, which permits us to form longer sentences by joining sentences and phrases together or adding modifiers to a noun. On the other hand, our linguistic performance pertains to our actual speech production and comprehension. This means that though there is no limit to the length of a sentence, in practice, very long sentences are highly improbable to be produced. Our linguistic knowledge permits us to form longer and longer sentences by joining sentences and phrases together or adding modifiers to a noun. However, there are physiological and psychological reasons that limit the number of adjectives, adverbs, clauses, and so on that we actually produce and understand. Speakers may run out of breath, lose track of what they have said, or die of old age before they are finished, while listeners may become tired, bored, disgusted, or confused with very long sentences. This ends our video on linguistic knowledge. Please check out other videos and do not forget to like and subscribe in this channel.